Greetings, Cleveland, and welcome to Creative Focus, the show that illuminates some of Cleveland's most talented and creative artists across the genres of dance, film, music, theater, literature, and visual arts. I'm your host, Cornell Calhoun III, and I'm thrilled to have as my guest today on Creative Focus, award-winning poet, Wall Street Wes. Wall Street, welcome to the show, man.
Good morning, good morning.
Let's chop it up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So talk about your poetic journey. How did that begin for you?
As a young boy, I originally started doing poetry just because my older sister Javier spent the day doing poetry, so I was just really trying to impress her. It didn't go far. Fast 4 years later, I ended up catching a case, and I was being sentenced to 10 years in prison for aggravated robbery. And 2 weeks before I caught that case, I had a girlfriend, and I had just got finished robbing the store, and I was only sitting in front of her house to change my clothes out the robbery clothes. And I realized it was her birthday. I forgot. I was so busy in the streets that I had miscalculated my days. So I had $5,000 from the robbery, and I looked around my truck and I found a receipt on the ground, and I wrote a quick poem on the receipt. So when I came in the house, I gave it to her. 2 weeks later, when I caught the case, she sent me the poem. She was like, remember this? And she was kind of baffled that somebody who was in the streets as deep as me, as deep as I was, can write poetry, you know? And I was just kind of confused myself. I was like, it's just the way I think. I didn't see nothing in it. So from that moment, I started writing her poetry every day in hopes that I'd write a poem good enough to make her do the time with me. But God just led me to let her go. But I never started writing her poetry. It started out with me just always writing her love poems, but as the years went on, me being in prison, those love poems turned to poems about sadness and alienation. And my poems started reflecting, my heartache and pain and my trials and tribulations that I was going through as far as being incarcerated. Every institution I went to, I taught poetry because I felt like that it was doing something for me. So I would teach other people poetry in hopes that they could learn how to communicate instead of being violent. And, the story just kind of went from there.
Okay, so tell me how the name Wall Street Wes came about. Because I had an uncle, I didn't tell you this when we first talked. I had an uncle who called himself Wall Street. And he always carried a Wall Street Journal on his arm, but he couldn't read. But it was primarily to impress people. He was sharp, he had the Wall Street. How did the Wall Street Wes name come about?
How I originated was, it was another guy from my neighborhood. His name was Wesley as well. But we hung together. We was like from the same neighborhood. We both had the same name. And I was more business oriented and focused. Even when I was committing crimes, I had a business mindset, and he was more of a party boy, but they didn't know he was a genius as well. And I remember one day we were just sitting there, and some young guy named Dre, he walked up and he was like, man, you Bourbon Street and you Wall Street West. And then from there it just stuck, and everybody started calling me Wall Street West. And when people started asking me, when they started calling me Wall Street, I started studying Wall Street and started studying the stock markets. And I was able to take that information and apply it to my character. So I just started telling people, they call me Wall Street because I invest in people.
Wow.
I have the wisdom to know when to invest in somebody. I have the wisdom to know to pull out my investment when I see that I'm pouring into you and you're not flourishing. I understand that this is not a good investment. So the same principles that I learned from the stock market, I apply just to navigate through life and just serve God's people. I feel like Wall Street is really my contribution to this earth. Like calling me Wall Street, it's equivalent to calling your pastor.
That's a great way to look at it. So take me through the process of when you create a new poem. Is it an idea? Is it something you see, something you read, something someone told you? How does that process work for you? Or is it a multitude of all those things?
I truly believe that I'm a translator in the name of the Most High. I never sit down and be like, I'm gonna write a poem today. It's almost like a possession, and I don't write on pieces of paper. Like I write poems in my head. Like I just form it. I'm writing, I'm editing. By the time I finish writing a poem, I memorized it. And I truly believe that God created me to be a poet because I can translate for people. I can help you. I can convey a message in a way that most people can't. Like most people might be feeling something, but they can't say exactly how they feeling. Whereas I can talk to you and I can turn and articulate it better. And I believe that my poems are just revelations, and prophecy.
You talked about something earlier I want you to elaborate on. Talk about poetry in terms of mental health and how that is a healing process.
Oh yeah, for sure. My company, Great Minds Think Different, we offer poetry as a form of emotional care. One of the things that my company offer is I might go into a prison and I might have 200 men in a room. And what I do is I pick everybody's brains and I take all of your thoughts and I write a poem. But the poem is actually it's actually me taking your thoughts and making it clear to other people. Even when I do poetry programs with children, the whole point of the poetry program with the children is not to teach the kids how to write poems. It's a platform because it's a non-threatening way for the kids to actually tell their parents what's really on their minds. A lot of times people don't feel like kids have anything on their mind because they're a kid. You think that everything they saying is immature, but children really have things on their mind. So the poetry programs, it's a peaceful way for the kids to really tell their parents, like, man, this is what I'm really thinking about, and I'm being serious about it. So all of my programs as far as poetry is really just a way for people to be heard, in a form of fashion. Everybody can't communicate. Everybody can't find their words. So I come in and I help you with that. I help you pervade your message.
What impact do you really want your poetry to have on the audience?
I wanted to make you think. I wanted to make you question your existence. I wanted to make you really take the time out to really ground yourself in right now. A lot of times we so focused on the next level or the future that we are neglected right now. So my poetry, I hope to encourage people to stop and pay attention to right now.
And in terms of this urban environment, how has the urban environment like Cleveland dictated your poetry, the journey that you're on with your poetry, would you say?
Well, majority of the time that I developed my poetry, I was in prison. So since I've been home from prison, the way Cleveland influenced me is just, I love Cleveland. It's my home, I'm raised here, and it's the city just feed me. No matter where I go, I can't step out on my porch without somebody like, man, Wall Street, and Cleveland they know who I am, and they really take pride in me. So it feeds my spirit, it keeps me going, and I don't need validation from nobody because everybody around me is constantly assuring me that I'm on the right path and I'm doing the right thing, and I'm constantly seeing the effects of my work in the community. So that's how Cleveland really play a part in my creativity.
Are there any poets that influence your thinking, your way of creating? I like the thought about you saying you don't write your poetry down, because I have a son who's a rapper, and that's the same way. He just does it from his head, so that's impressive. Are there any poets that that you look up to, or you like to emulate? Anyone offhand?
I can't say that. I never, when I was developing my poetry, I never even heard another poet until I started teaching poetry classes myself.
Okay.
I've always been the type of person where I just kind of go within for inspiration. If I feel like I could say anybody who inspires me, it wouldn't be another poet. It would be like Nipsey Hussle. I feel like that his mentality and his perceptions on life, we share the same mentality. So I listen to Nipsey Hussle the same way somebody would listen to church on tapes.
So there are no specific themes that you incorporate in your poetry. You just kind of feel the rhythms of the city, of people. Is that a clear assessment or no?
Like I said, it's just like a possession. I never had a desire to write a poem. Okay. One day it'll just start hitting me. I might have a line and it'll just be on my mind hard and heavy where I can't even think it. Every time I'm alone, it'll be on my mind, and it'll just day after day, lines just be coming to me and coming to me and coming to me. So it's just like I never looked to write poetry. It just chews me, you know, like it's something beyond me. Like, and I could tell it is because nobody never taught me poetry. It was just something that I knew. It was a gift. Like God gave me this gift, and it makes sense the older I get. But now in my career, I've kind of gotten away from writing poems for myself, whereas like now I just write poems for other people, you know, for social causes, I should say.
Talk about your work with the kids a little bit more, because I mean I think that's invaluable in today's society.
Like I was saying before, everybody is asking. I hear everybody saying like these kids is crazy. This generation is this generation is that, and they just say it. Whereas through my poetry programs, I get down to the root. I get down to the problem. I don't just sit back and say like, all these kids, is this generation that? Like through my poetry program, I find out what's really going on with you, and then I present it to the public. Like, man, this is what's really on these kids' mind. Y'all saying something is wrong with them, but they telling you that this is what's wrong with them. Like I had a poetry class in the neighborhood one time where I demanded that you couldn't just drop your kid off. Like you had to stay with your kid if you brought him to our poetry class, and it was the reason why I did that. So one day all the mothers brought their kids, and somehow everybody was upset, but they feel like their kids really wasn't doing that well in school. So I'm presenting a poetry exercise, but for real, I'm really just picking your brain and find out what's really going on, because a parent might not have the patience to really listen to you. They just upset with you. So through the poetry, that day we found out that one of the kids, their family came from Africa. So he didn't understand how the teachers was teaching in America, and that was the root to the problem. And when the mother found that out, she was able to assist him better in his education. And the other kids, we found out that they were struggling in school because they just really wasn't getting enough help at home. And then through the poetry, we find out that the parents is not helping the kids because the parents don't know. Mm-hmm. They feel like they so far removed from school that they try to help you with your homework. They get so frustrated, they're like, whatever, you just figure it out. So now the kid lost because he don't know neither. The parent don't know. So once the parents realized that they was the root of the problem, it opened their eyes and they wasn't so angry with the kids, you know? So with my poetry programs, it's really, for the kids, it's designed to really find solutions to these problems. I'm not gonna just say there's something wrong with these kids. There's something really going on with these kids, and we need to find out. And a lot of parents are so overwhelmed by life that they're not nurturing these kids the right way. And it's not their fault. They don't really know no better. You got some people who really good at it. You got some people who really not. But for the people who really not, because I don't have kids, I service the community as well. My poetry program is just really me still believing in that it take a village, you know?
Now, what age groups do you work with?
Whatever age group somebody paid me to do. You know?
Doesn't matter, huh?
Yeah, from young to old.
Tell me what role music plays in your poetry. If
Everything, for real. Like I told you, like music, in my house, you know, in every room is music playing, like very softly, because it feeds my soul subconsciously. I use music to create an atmosphere around me so I can show up in this world the way I do. I'm constantly feeding myself and nurturing myself, and music is just one of those things that I feed myself with. And I can't just listen to Pandora and let the music play. I gotta control the music around me because I'm purposely feeding my own soul with the music that I'm listening to.
So what role do you think society really plays? What role does poetry, really play in society, would you say?
Right now, I can't speak of poetry in a whole, but as far as what I'm doing, I feel like that it's really servicing the community, you know? And I'm not just saying that from a haughty standpoint. I'm being very humble about it because that's my intentions. My intentions is to really be a change agent in my community, but because I come under the umbrella of poetry, it allows me access to every person. If I come in the name of religion, then it's gonna only allow me to be access to a percentage of people. Only a certain type of person is gonna hear me if I come in the name of religion. But because I come under the umbrella of poetry, Anybody in this world is willing to listen to me. Anybody in this world is willing to take on the energy that I'm giving, and the energy that I'm giving is just what I draw from God. And it's just like, it's my church, you know? It's a brand new way to service the community, whereas church ain't for everybody, you know? And I can only teach how I know. I can't go into a church and receive a broad message. I need a spiritual leader to talk to me one-on-one, because I'm very active in my spirituality. So I don't need a broad message. I need you to be like, hey, Wes, you know, you get easily angry here. Here's some information for you to look at this different. So poetry is my church. It's how I show up in the community in a form of fashion where I can really service everybody.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm ready to feel some of that energy. So I'm going to have you do something live for me.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to take a break, and then Wall Street West is going to break out with one of his creative selections.
Yes, sir. This morning, I finally cried, reflecting on all of the times that I had to start over. But thank God, Jehovah, my heart's holder, that my heart rovers through hard times. Though part sober, no man can say the aunt soldier in hard times. I mark boulders in hard times. Like Wall Street West was hearing the name of the Lord on the floor, then on the shoulders of hard times. All the while trying not to let my body language speak or show that it's hard times. But you could thank my damn parents that I'm transparent, so this isn't a show. It's hard times. But because I stand tall at all times, oh geez, give me so many stripes, oh geez. Got my attire looking like a tiger in hard times. And I won't front like I don't tire in hard times. Air pressure low in my tires in hard times, which makes it hard for me to come places where being complacent is all fine. And you may wonder, why am I so hard on myself? Always giving me such a hard time. Because I realized that the pressure is all mine when that depression was all mine. But thank God no weapon formed against me shall prosper. Disarm you hard times, now that weapon is all mine. But what if that weapon was our minds? Demise, them eyes, tells me everything that you are willing to disguise. Surprise. So now I'm to a point where I no longer care how you're depicting me, as long as you could picture me rolling through hard times. And that's facts. So now when I go to the Lord, I no longer ask for a lighter burden. I pray for a stronger back. Palm.
Tell me about Hard Times. That was a fabulous presentation. Just talk about it a little bit and how it came about.
The way that the poem Hard Times came about was after coming home from prison. You know, when you're in prison, they really want to make sure that you're not going back into society committing crimes. Like, that's their whole mentality. Like, hey, you shouldn't be committing crimes. This is how society is supposed to be. This is how you conduct yourself in society. You need empathy for people. That keeps you from committing a crime on somebody. You need pro-social skills. You need all of these tools to really function in society. And because I took accountability for my crime, I spent day and night feeding my spirit, building myself up to be in society. And when I came home, my rehabilitation worked against me. Like, everything that I built up to fit back in society, it worked against me, from my relationships to my family settings. And I had got to a point where I was so sad at this estate of our community, of our women, of our children. It had made me so sad that I just like locked myself in the house for like 90 days. And I was like partly scared to come outside, because as a convicted felon, when you get a felony in your name, you experience something called civil death. Whereas for the rest of your life, by law, nobody got to look at you like a human being no more. Like, you are no longer considered a human being once you have a felony on your record. And I could feel that from people. I could feel it from my mother. I could feel it from my family members. I could feel it from everybody. And I just hid. I remember having a female trying to extort me. And when I tried to go to the police about it, they told me the only way they could help me is if she killed me. Like, that's the only way they could help me. I recorded and everything, and that was like where I was really at. So I hid. And for 90 days, I was in a really bad state. And after 90 days, I sat on my couch one morning. It was my first time being woke during the day. I usually be up all night and I sleep during the day. And it was my first time feeling sunlight. And I remember sitting there crying and pacing back and forth for just calling out to God for understanding and for guidance. And since I've been home, I've had to start over 21 times, like literally, like where I have it all. I got penthouses, nice cars, the best clothes, and I ain't got nothing. And I got to start all over again. And I just cried out to God, like, why I keep on falling off? Why I keep on losing like that? Because I'm not having to start over because I'm being irresponsible. It's because, you know, when people can't take advantage of me, you know, they look to hurt me. They look to be spiteful, you know. And God put it in my spirit. He was just like, man, you ain't fell off all those times. I delivered you all those times. In that moment, that poem just started coming to me. Mm-hmm. And right there in that moment, I'm crying and I'm pacing back and forth and the poem is just coming out. But once I finished writing the poem, I recognized that the poem was about triumph. It was about persevering. It was about the power of
Take your time, Wes. Take your time, man.
It's the power of like really realizing that God is on your side. And I realized that everything that I go through in this life, I only went through it just to be a testament to how powerful God really is when you submit and when you really understand that spiritual aspect of a human being. A lot of people neglect their spirituality. And because I submit spiritually, it's like no weapon formed against me really never prosper. Like it's just anything that ever come up against me and lose. And that poem just represented just how much I truly feel chosen, you know?
Great work, great work. What would you say to an aspiring poet? Because you've been through it, man. You've seen it, you've done it, you've rose from the ashes. What would you tell somebody in your position, the next person who needed to face a challenge like that?
What helped me was that I stopped presenting myself as a poet, you know, and this is something that I try to urge all poets is like even now when I go to do business, I don't show up as a poet. I show up as a business that offers poetry services. I study the business of poetry. I spent years doing shows, doing elegant shows downtown Cleveland, live bands, and I wasn't making no money. You know, that's what everybody want to do at the end of the day. You want to get paid for your art. Right. You want to live freely by doing what you love. And I really was on a quest to make that happen for myself. And when I started presenting myself as a business, and that's when I started making money. And that's when I started flourishing. And now I live a full-blown life just doing what I love. Every day, I'm just constantly just refining my business. I have room to feed myself spiritually. So when I do show up in the world as a poet, it's genuine, it's real, you know? And like how I got hip to you, one thing that I always tell people is the Assembly of the Arts. The Assembly of the Arts play a big role in, you know, my business, and I depend on them in so many different ways, but they're here for artists. So I give out the Assembly Arts number at least 5 times a day, but nobody really utilizes it. I'm trying to tell them like, hey man, it's an organization right here in Cleveland that thrives on pushing artists, you know, like, and I just stay up to date with them, and it opens me up to even be in positions like this.
Yeah, they're right in the Tower Press development where I live, in the artist complex. So if someone wanted to get in touch with you for speaking and engagement, for your programs with the kids and poetry, what's the best way to do that?
The best way to do it is my phone number. Just call me. But also,
what's that number?
216-290-9637. But you can also get in contact with me as well as see the work that I'm doing in the community at greatmindsthinkdifferent.org.
Okay, greatmindsthinkdifferent.org.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Do you have a Facebook page, Instagram?
Instagram. I really set my Instagram up to be like a website.
Okay.
Like my Instagram is structured for anyone who wants in-depth information about me as an artist and my company. Man, that's all my Instagram is. I don't put nothing personal on there. Everything is just so you can get a better understanding of, who I am and what I truly do.
Okay. Well, hey, man, I want to tell you, I'm very, very impressed. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Honor is mine.
So that's it, Cleveland. We're out. But remember, a true artist is not only inspired, but inspires others. I'm Cornell Calhoun III for TV 20 and Creative Focus. Until the next time becomes our time, be well, be safe.